Bright Fashion Academy Corset Sew Along tutorial. So today's tutorial is going to be on the alteration of the pattern we made in the last video. So this is part 2 of the corset project Sew Along. So if you have not watched how the basic bodice is made, please watch part 1 of the corset Sew Along. Okay, so we'll be sewing along together this corset right from the beginning, as you can see on the screen right here. So now we want to alter our front pattern. So if you are new to this channel or this is your first time clicking on this channel, please kindly subscribe, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this each day. Like this video, share to family and friends, and drop your comments on the comment section and your suggestions as well. So this is a corset sew along. So we are going to sew this corset together from the beginning to finish. All right, so this is what we are going to do in the alteration of our basic bodice pattern. First thing first is to find the midpoint of your shoulder seam line. So this is my midpoint, and I'm going to connect it to the bust points. That is the first thing I'll be doing. And the second thing I will do is to find the bust radius. The bust radius is the difference from the bust point to the under bust. So here I have 3 inches. So I'll quickly rotate 3 inches. I'll rotate it like this, like that. So what this does for us is to enable us determine exactly where we want the neckline to sit. Okay, all right, so we are done with this, and that is exactly what is required. So right now we want to determine how deep we want the neckline. So it's time for us to determine the neckline of our corset. So to determine the neckline of this corset, first we want to determine how off we want this to be. Okay, so this is an off shoulder corset, so I want it to be as off as 4 inches. Okay, so you can see me placing my tape from the shoulder, and I'm marking 4 inches. That is where I want this to be off. So now I'm going to mark my line at that point. So it depends on how off you want it to be. Some people would want to off by 5. So if you're offing by 5, it means you'll come down a little bit. Okay, so I'm using 4 inches for this tutorial. So coming over to the center front line, I'll come up from the center front by 1.5, and then I'm going to place my neckline. So remember, this is a corset. So since it's a corset, I wouldn't want it to come up so much. So I would want to come up by 3/4. That is 0.75. Let me do 0.75. I think it's better at that point for a corset. Then I will just come in from that 3/4. From my chest line, I come up by 3/4. And from the center front line, I will come up by 1/2 inch. Okay, so at that point, that is where I want to connect my corset. So I would want to off by 5 inches. Okay, because of the alteration I have just made now. So I will come down by 5 inches. I'll be offing by 5 inches. Okay, so we'll be able to get this curve. So I'm no longer making use of this. Okay, so please, sorry about that. So now I'm going to position my ruler. I would want to change my marker so you understand what we are doing right here. So from this point, I came in by 0.5, and I'm going to connect my neckline. So it's actually going to be a sweetheart neckline, as you can see. So if your pattern ruler is not giving you what you want, you can also freehand it. Okay, so I'll be using my pattern ruler to do this. So you can see, I think I like the neckline we have right there. So now I've created the corset neckline. So the next thing I want to do is to contour the upper bust. So because I have this line running from the shoulder to the bust point, and I have my off line for my off shoulder, so I'm good to go right now. So what I'm going to do is from this point I'll come out by 0.75, and from here, this point, I'll go in by 0.75 to contour. Like I earlier said, it works for almost everybody. So I'll connect it to the bust point, as you can see, and I'll flip it this other way and connect back to the bust point. So in other words, what we have taken right here is 1.5. okay, so the whole of this is for the contouring of our corset cup, as you can see. Okay, all right, so this is an off shoulder, so we are not going to replace this dart because normally if there's no dart right here, if you're making an off shoulder without a dart, you are supposed to take off your shoulder 1.5 from your shoulder. That is, my shoulder here is 7.35, that is 7.75, 7.3. So I'm supposed to take off 1.5 from 7.3. So since we've taken it off right here, so we are good to go. All you need to do is to connect, slant your ruler like this. Is an off shoulder, you don't need to go in too deep like that. So you bring out your pattern ruler like this, okay, and connect it in an off shoulder armhole pattern. All right, so we are done with that part. Next we want to move into is the creation of the cup. But before we create our cup, we are going to go to the under bust. Okay, so at the under bust right here, we would want to contour our under bust. So to contour the under bust I'm working with, circumference I'm working with right here is 35. So 35 divide, okay, sorry, under bust is 29. So 29, I'm going to divide it by 4. So this is my 29. I'm going to divide by 2 first. I have 14.5. Then I divide by another 2. And here I have 7.25. Okay, that is 7 1/4. So I have 7 1/4. I'm going to place my tape on the under bust line from the center front, and I'm going to measure 7.25. This is 7.25, and what I have here is 1 inch. So I'm going to share half an inch here, and I'm going to share the rest of half an inch. Okay, from the outer dart leg I'll place half an inch. So in other words, I added the 1 inch, I shared it equally. Remember, this is a corset we are making right here, so it needs to be equal at the under bust. So whatever your bust is, divide by 4, measure on that line, whatever thing remaining, you share it there. So now from this point I shared, you can see how I placed my ruler. From this point I shared, and I'm taking it up to that point, and then on this point, remember this is the bust radius of 3 inches. So from that point I'll add 0.5 because the bust is fuller on this part. So from this contour line, I'm going to position my pattern ruler, as you can see. So I'll draw the line to touch what I have at this armhole line. Okay, all right, so that is the size of the bust you are seeing right there. So from here I have 3.5. okay, all right people, so that is that, and that is what we have on the corset. So the next thing we want to do now is to take what we have right here. Okay, we are going to bring what we have right here directly on a straight course like this. All right, so everything right here, we are cutting them off, everything. So you have to keep your ruler straight at this point. Okay, even if it does not meet the dart. What it means there is that we are going to have, what I have here is 1.5. It means I will also have 1.5, so you can see it is equal, and here we are good to go. So we need to contour the bust proper. From this point, I'll be placing my pattern ruler like this to shaping the corset. You can see what I did, and at this point I'm going to place my ruler. So you can see the cup is out right now from here. So all of this inclusive are going to go out once we close up our bust dart. Okay, all right, so here is what we have for our corset. All right people, so now you can see what I have. So it's high time for us to close up our bust darts. Okay, so to close up the bust darts, I would want to trim off what I have on the front length. Okay, so for you to close up a dart, you need to cut through a dart. So I'm cutting through my waist dart to the bust point, as you can see, and I'm cutting through my waist dart to the bust point. So I'm taking away this dart. So I want you to note also that what we have right here, the dart intake we have here now is 1.5, and we added only 1 inch. So that means we are going to replace that 1 inch, so we don't have a short half inch. Okay, our dart originally was 1 inch, which is what we added, if you remember. Or in other words, your waist divide by 4. Here I'm working with 7. This is 2.5. I'll take it over to the next dart, so I'll be able to mark my 7. Can you see that? I repeat again, from the center front, I'm working with waist. The waist, round waist I'm working with is 28. 28 divided by 4 is 7. So from here to the dart, I have 2.5. I will jump from that 2.5 to mark my 7. Okay, so this is my 7. So you can see the half inch. This is the half inch that we have extra on the dart. So I'm going to replace the half inch from the waistline back to this point. Okay, and then my bust dart will be come out more to this line and will be extended back to this point. I believe you understand what we did there. Okay, so I will now cut through my new waistline. Okay, so make sure you replace this to avoid shortage. So I'm cutting on the shape of the front piece. So I'm cutting through the armhole of shoulder, as you can